Check this out. Keep watching, and tell me, do any of you out there have phone charging cables? The same as mine. What an absolute disgrace. No wonder my phone won't charge. G'day folks, Uncle Knackers here from DIY for Knuckleheads, and in today's video we'll be addressing that whole phone charger cable catastrophe by building a small bookshelf that'll be attached to the wall via a French cleat. Ooh la la! Very fancy. That will also have wireless charging capabilities. How cool's that? And speaking of cool, how about you being the coolest kid in the corner by subscribing to my channel, and while you're there, make sure you click that notification bell. Good stuff. Let's go. Now the shelf itself should be pretty easy to make. No fancy joinery here folks, but I'll be building it out of a hodgepodge of materials from my old scrap heap, so there's potential here for it to be an absolute disaster. Fingers crossed it's not, and this is what I'll be using. Well, if I don't like it, I can always change it. If it's rubbish, I can, well, we'll see how we go. Righto trendsetters, for your viewing pleasure, this is what we have to work with. I've got an old fence post, that could be good. I have a length of fascia board, which is off our old house after we demolished it for our renovation. I'll probably use that. I also have a couple of pallet boards that I've joined together for a previous job that I didn't finish. So it'll be good to finally use that. I even have a couple of scrap pieces of OSB bracing board. Could be handy, not quite sure if I'll use it, but it's in the mix. And last but not least, some old fence palings and pallet wood, which might come in handy. Alrighty. An eclectic mix, you might say. Well, you're right. It is. Now this is kind of like one of those cooking shows where the poor old chef is given something like a can of baked beans, a floppy old carrot, and a soggy old tea bag, and asked to make lobster thermidor in under 10 minutes. I think I've got my work cut out for me. Now, it's a very important aspect of carpentry to always approach the saw with a touch of flair and style. I find it sets you up for a good cut. I'm going to be using that old fence post for the top of the shelf, so after squaring up one end, I'll be cutting two lengths at 560mm, or approximately 22 inches. So these two freshly cut boards are going to be the top for the shelf, and to join them I'm just going to dust off my trusty old biscuit joiner. I've got my biscuits, and all you need to do there is cut those biscuits in, and then I'll just simply glue and clamp these bad boys together. With a square and a pencil, mark the positions of the biscuits. I've placed one in the middle and the other two 2 inches in from either end. Once that's done, rip out the old biscuit joiner and cut the slots for the biscuits. Now here's an Uncle Knackers pro tip. To save getting glue all over your workbench, place some waxed paper, like cooking paper, under the area where you're about to glue up. Trust me, you'll thank me. When gluing up, don't be shy. Lather that stuff on for a tight bond. Place in the biscuits, lay the boards flat to line everything up, and then with your knock-o-meter, gently give the boards a little love tap to engage the biscuits. Then just simply clamp together. Beautiful! Righto, this is 24 hours later, and hopefully this should be dry. With a bit of luck, let's just have a look-see. Alright, that's pretty good. Happy with that. Now, just in case you're wondering where the whole wireless charging component fits into this build, I've got myself a wireless charger here, also known as a QI charger, just in case you're searching for one. And what I'll be doing with this is I'll be recessing it into the underside of our top shelf, which will invisibly charge your phone. So make sure you keep on watching, as we'll talk more about this and how it works later on in the video. Alrighty, next up, let's cut the sides for the shelf. Now with those two sides ready to go, all we need to do is to cut a rebate on the underside of this top shelf so the sides has somewhere to fit into. Now you might not be able to see this on camera, but I've actually cut the bottom of these sides 20mm narrower than the top, purely for looks, so that when the shelf is hanging on the wall, it doesn't look so boxy. Righto, let's give it a test. See how poorly I did. So far so good. Oh, look at that. That's like a finger in a glove. Love it. Righto trendsetters, I'm going to take a bit of a punt here and use that OSB board as the backing for the bookshelf. Now I actually want to rebate this into the side. So what we need to take into consideration is that the French cleat will be finishing up flush on top, just like that. So the OSB board will need to start directly underneath that. You know what I mean? Clear as mud? Excellent. Now I'm just about ready to start cutting that rebate for the OSB board, but before that, a quick tip. Whenever you're marking a dark timber with a pencil, sometimes it can be really hard to see. So what I like to do is to grab some tape, run that tape out, mark your line on that tape, and then that makes those lines much easier to see. And that fits in very nicely. That's good. Now before you get all excited and you start to assemble the bookshelf, we need to first of all install this wireless charger underneath that top shelf. And there's a couple of things that you need to consider before you do that. Now the wireless phone charger is a pretty handy gadget. All you need to do is place your phone on top and your phone starts to charge, even though mine has a case on it, which I reckon is pretty cool. Now the problem we're going to have is that we're actually embedding this wireless charger underneath our shelf. So the issue is, how far can this transmit a signal through wood? Now I've done a bit of testing and I found that 3mm or 1/8 of an inch is about the maximum thickness you can go and still receive a charge, as you can see right there. Now this even has a case on it, so if you took that case off, you could even perhaps increase that thickness there. The next thing you need to consider is the actual placement of the wireless charger. I have a power point on this side, so it makes sense for the charger to be on this edge here, especially when you consider that it came with a pretty short lead. Now wireless chargers are notorious for not working if the phone is not in exactly the right spot. So what I'm going to do is place my charger in a position so that when my phone is flush with the front of the shelf, it's always going to charge. Good tip. And by doing that with the phone down toward the front, we can still place pictures or whatever behind it. Now to save some time and also to save you the boredom of watching me cut stuff, I've gone ahead and I've cut the rebates for the shelves as well as the shelves themselves, and I've also gone ahead and done a bit of resin work to fill in all those cracks, nooks and crannies that you get when working with old timber. Now I've also filled in that stonking big hole with a piece of OSB and put some resin over the top, so hopefully that'll sand back nicely. Alrighty, speaking of that, the next step, sand this back and then we'll get stuck into cutting the hole for the wireless charger. Now that template is going to act as a guide for my router, and we'll route all that wood out until we get to within 3mm of the top of that shelf, which, I'm not going to tell a lie, is going to be a tad nerve-wracking. And once we do all that, then we can secure our wireless charger in place with a couple of drops of hot glue. Man, I am so glad that's over. Oh, seriously, that was so tense. I am so close to the surface here, it is ridiculous. And I think the reason is that this wood isn't exactly uniform. I'm 43mm thick there, and I'm 41mm thick there. So trying to get an even spread and get as close as you can to that surface without the router bit bursting through. Man, I am shot. I'm a shot duck. I think I'll need a cup of tea to calm the nerves. Whew. And from underneath the shelf, this is how it looks. We've got that 40mm deep hole, which we've just routed out, and the wireless charger will fit in there just like that and hot glued in place. And I also routed out a rebate for our lead to sit in. Now the question you've all been wanting to know, did it work? Well, there was some really good news, but also a little bit of disappointing news that I think can be rectified with a slightly better charger. Now, if we can get our charger, put it in position underneath, just like that, and then if we can slide our phone across, you'll notice that it starts to charge. But you'll also notice that I've taken the phone cover off. And with the phone case on, you'll see that the phone doesn't charge. But like I said earlier, that could be rectified with a slightly better wireless charger, or if you're a thrill seeker, you could go a bit deeper with your routering. But personally, I'm not willing to take that risk. Now the bookshelf's going to be attached to the wall via a French cleat, which will fit snugly between that side there and that side there. And all I'm using is this scrap piece of 100mm wide or 4-inch wide material, which I will rip down the middle on a 45-degree angle using my circular saw. Now once again, to save you some time, I've gone ahead and I've given this a really good sand. It feels absolutely amazing. I wish we had feel-o-vision. Maybe not. But anyway, that's all done, and the next thing we need to do is to pull out the old hammer and nail and put this beast together. Fingers crossed, it all works out. Let's go. Now before I go ahead and apply a finish to the shelf, I thought I'd just quickly run through this whole French cleat thingy for those out there who may not know how it works. Once upon a time, this was one piece of wood which we simply cut into two pieces on a 45-degree angle. The top piece, we attach that to the shelf flush with the back of it, and then the second piece, this one here, we attach that securely to the wall. And then all you need to do is to lower the shelf onto that bottom cleat, and we're in business. Too easy. And to finish off the bookshelf, and just before I hot glue in that wireless charger and then attach it to the wall, I'm going to give it a couple of coats of a clear matte polyurethane. That's looking good, folks. With that finished dry, it's now time to install our wireless charger, which is a simple process of just applying a few drops of hot glue on those edges and then laying it in place. Now remember to have the lead installed when you do that, because once the charger's in place, it might be difficult to insert the lead. And also, don't smother that in glue, because you may want to remove it if something goes wrong with it, and you might want to change it if technology improves. Now to install it is just simply a matter of placing it on top of that cleat, and we're done. How good does that look? I think that OSB insert looks absolutely fantastic. I really like how the side tapers, and I'm really glad that I didn't sand off those numbers because I think it gives the bookshelf a bit of authenticity. How's that for a big word? See, I told you, I just don't lift heavy things. And I also think that the OSB board that I use for the backing is a really nice touch as it makes it feel a bit retro. And you can see here how the lead goes down through a hole in that shelf and then out through a hole in the side, and that'll be covered over by books so you won't see it. And then it just simply plugs into the power point next to the shelf. Okay maestro, drum roll please. Time for the big test, and the reason for the whole project is this wireless. Bang. Yes, yes it is, you little ripper. Now just for you guys, I've left a link to a charger down below that's better than mine, and I think it's even cheaper than mine. So if you're interested, go down there and check it out. And while you're here, if you want to see more videos just like this one, make sure you click on one of the playlists that'll be popping up over there very shortly. Alright, well I hope you enjoyed and found that video useful, and if you did, a big thumbs up is always greatly appreciated, and I think after all that, I really need a cup of tea. So till next time, be good, be safe, and I'm out of here. Cheers.